You could have an entire wall of canned goods stacked floor to ceiling and still not be truly prepared. The real question is not how many cans you own. The question is whether those cans can actually carry your family through difficult days, week after week, meal after meal. So today we are cutting through all the noise. No complicated lists, no survival fantasy shopping, no fear-mongering about worst-case scenarios. Just 6 canned foods that genuinely matter, and more importantly, why each one earns its spot on your shelf. Here is what makes this list different from the usual advice you find online. Each item fills a very specific role. One handles quick protein. One brings dense nutrition your body quietly craves. One makes everything taste like actual food. One carries the bulk of your meals. One shows up as a complete meal when nobody has the energy to cook. And one, the one most people laugh off first, might be the reason your family keeps eating it all after a tough week. We are starting at number 6. And yes, it is the most ordinary item on the list. But ordinary does not mean unimportant. In fact, some of the most reliable things in life are ordinary. That is usually why they work. Number 6, canned chicken. Nobody gets excited about canned chicken. It does not photograph well. It does not sound impressive when you mention it at a dinner party. It is not the kind of item that makes someone feel like a smart, sophisticated shopper. But here is the thing about preparedness. The most useful tools are rarely the most glamorous ones. Canned chicken fills one very specific role, and it fills it better than almost anything else on this list. It gives you ready animal protein without needing a single appliance, without thawing, and without any raw meat handling at all. Now think about how most families actually store their protein. There is usually a freezer involved. Chicken breasts, ground beef, pork chops, maybe some bulk meat bought on a good sale day. It feels solid. It feels responsible. You look at that freezer and you feel like you have done something smart. But that whole system depends entirely on one thing staying constant: the power. When electricity goes out for an extended period, that freezer stops being a food storage solution. It becomes a timer. You are suddenly racing to figure out which meat will spoil first, what needs to be cooked right now, whether it is still safe, and whether the kids can actually eat all of it before it turns. The meal planning you thought you had done suddenly unravels. That pressure disappears the moment you have canned chicken waiting on your shelf. Open the can, and you have usable protein immediately. No planning needed, no defrost cycle, no handling raw meat on a stressful day. Toss it into rice and you have turned a plain starch into something that actually fuels people. Add it to a pot of soup, and suddenly that soup has real substance and staying power. Mix it with whatever bread or crackers you have left, and you have got a quick meal that takes about 4 minutes to put together. And that last point matters more than people often realize. Because in genuinely hard times, the obstacle is not always the food itself. Sometimes the obstacle is the human, the person who has been managing stress all day and simply has nothing left, the older adult who does not want to deal with a cutting board and a hot stove, the parent who has already handled 3 crises before noon and cannot face cooking from scratch again. Canned chicken asks almost nothing from you. That is exactly why it belongs on this list. There is also a pantry balance issue worth addressing directly. Most people who start building an emergency pantry lean very heavily on carbohydrates. Rice, pasta, crackers, oats, cereal. These are cheap, they store easily, and they feel like smart bulk buying. But a pantry made entirely of carbs is not a strong pantry. It is a pantry that will leave people feeling hollow after a few days, even if their stomachs are technically full. Protein is what makes a meal feel real. It is what helps people feel stable and grounded, not just temporarily satisfied until the next meal. Without it, people eating from a carb-heavy pantry often describe feeling oddly empty despite eating enough volume. There is also the energy factor to think about. Protein digests more slowly than simple carbohydrates. That means it keeps people satisfied longer between meals. During stressful periods when meals might not be perfectly timed or consistently portioned, that slow release of energy genuinely matters. One more practical note before moving on. Buy canned chicken, use it, and replace it. It should not sit in your cabinet aging quietly for 3 years. Work it into your regular cooking. Make a quick chicken pasta on a busy weeknight. Use it for a fast rice bowl when you do not feel like thawing anything. Let it move in and out of your pantry like a living part of your food supply, not a museum exhibit behind glass. And if sodium is a concern in your household, low-sodium versions exist and are worth seeking out. Or simply pair it with plainer foods like unseasoned rice or plain pasta to naturally balance the salt content without any extra effort. The bottom line with canned chicken is this: when everything else in your kitchen requires effort, electricity, or advanced planning, canned chicken just works. That kind of quiet, consistent reliability is worth far more than people typically give it credit for. Number 5. Canned sardines. Here is a situation many people do not see coming until it is already happening. You have food in the house. The pantry has carbs, it has some protein, it has soup, it has canned vegetables. Technically, you are not going hungry. Meals are happening on schedule. But somewhere around day 4 or 5 of eating from that pantry, something shifts beneath the surface. You finish a meal and still feel off. Not hungry exactly, but not satisfied either. There is a low-level emptiness that another bowl of rice is simply not going to fix. What your body is missing is fat, not the kind from a bag of chips or a sleeve of crackers. Real nutritional fat. The kind that makes calories actually stick and sustain you. The kind that gives your brain what it needs to stay clear and functional under pressure. The kind that makes a meal feel like it actually nourished you rather than just occupied your stomach for a couple of hours before the hunger returns. This is the specific gap canned sardines fill, and they fill it in a way almost nothing else on this list can match. In one small can of sardines packed in oil, you get protein, healthy fats, omega-3 fatty acids, important minerals, and if the bones are soft enough to eat, which they usually are in properly processed canned sardines, you also get a meaningful source of calcium. That is a genuinely impressive combination for something that costs less than $2 and fits easily in the palm of your hand. Compare that to other canned proteins. Chicken gives you lean protein, which is excellent. Tuna gives you compact protein, also genuinely valuable. But neither of them brings the fat content your body will start quietly craving after several days of dry, carb-heavy, low-fat eating. That craving is not a weakness. It is your body sending a very clear signal about what it needs. Now here is where honesty matters more than hype. Sardines are not for everyone. They have a strong smell. They have a distinct, assertive taste. Some people genuinely enjoy them. Others open the can once and decide that is more than enough for an entire lifetime. And if your family falls firmly into that second group, buying 30 cans of sardines is not preparation. It is just a bad pantry decision dressed up in survival logic. So do this instead. Buy 2 or 3 cans. Try different varieties because they vary more than you might expect. Sardines packed in oil taste noticeably different from sardines packed in water. Sardines in tomato sauce are different again, milder and more approachable for many people. Try them in a real meal on a normal day, not in some imaginary emergency scenario that may never arrive. Eat them on crackers with a little hot sauce, mix them into pasta with garlic and olive oil, serve them over rice with a squeeze of lemon. See what your household can actually tolerate when it is a real dinner, not a test. If your family can genuinely eat them, that is a win. Rotate them regularly and let them earn their permanent place on the shelf. If sardines are simply a firm no, regardless of preparation, look at mackerel or tuna packed in oil as alternatives. Mackerel has a nutritional profile very similar to sardines. Tuna in oil brings significantly more fat than the water-packed version most people default to without thinking about it. The goal is never to force sardines into your life or your family's meals. The goal is to ensure your pantry has a compact, affordable, ready-to-eat source of both protein and fat. How you get there is flexible. One more thing worth mentioning. In a tighter budget environment, the math on canned fish starts looking very different from fresh options. Fresh salmon is excellent. Canned salmon is also genuinely solid. But when the grocery bill is climbing and you are being thoughtful about where every dollar lands, a few cans of sardines or mackerel let you cover your nutritional fat gap without putting real pressure on your monthly food budget. That is a practical advantage worth recognizing, even if it is not a glamorous one. Number 4, canned tomatoes. Let us talk about meal fatigue. because it is more serious than most preparedness guides acknowledge. Imagine you are 5 days into eating primarily from your pantry. You have protein, you have carbs, you have calories. Nobody is technically going hungry, and you know intellectually that you are doing fine. But dinner tonight is essentially the same as dinner 2 nights ago, and the night before that. And there is a quiet, growing dread about what tomorrow evening is going to look like when everyone sits down at the table again. That feeling, the one where food stops being something you look forward to and becomes something you mentally push through, is one of the most underrated challenges during any stressful period. It wears people down in ways that are hard to articulate, but very easy to feel. And canned tomatoes are one of the most effective, affordable tools against it. They are not the most filling item on this list. They are not the highest in protein. They will not carry a meal on their own, but they do something none of the other items do quite as well. They create flavor, moisture, and the feeling that a meal was actually cooked rather than just hastily assembled from whatever was left. Think about what canned tomatoes can do when combined with the other items on this list. A can of diced tomatoes poured over plain beans and rice transforms that combination into something with a sauce and a reason to eat it. Tomato paste stirred into a pot of canned chicken and broth gives you something that genuinely tastes like stew. Tomato sauce over pasta makes one of the most common budget meals feel like an intentional dinner rather than a last resort from an empty week. You do not need a cooking lesson here. The point is simpler than any recipe. Flavor is what keeps people willing to sit down and eat. And a pantry that has no flavor base is a pantry that will fail emotionally long before it fails nutritionally. There are 3 forms worth keeping on hand, and each serves a slightly different purpose in your cooking. Diced tomatoes are the most versatile of the 3. They add texture, moisture, and a pleasant, mild acidity to soups, beans, chili, and rice dishes. They work in the background without dominating the flavor of whatever you are making. Tomato sauce is your shortcut to a complete pasta base and also works beautifully poured over beans or mixed into meat when you have it available. Tomato paste is small, powerful, and easy to tuck into even a tight pantry space. A single tablespoon can completely change the depth of flavor in an entire large pot of soup or stew. You do not need all 3 varieties in large quantities, but having at least 2 of these forms gives your pantry real cooking range and genuine flexibility on any given meal. Here is the important caveat. Tomatoes are acidic, and that acidity, while excellent for flavor development, also means they need to be rotated consistently rather than forgotten. Buy specifically what your family uses in normal, everyday cooking. If you make pasta at home regularly, canned tomato sauce makes complete sense and will get used. If you do soups, chili, or stews frequently, diced tomatoes are a natural fit. If space is genuinely limited, tomato paste gives you the best value per square inch of shelf space. The real job of canned tomatoes is not to be the star of your pantry. It is to make everything else in your pantry more worth eating. Rice needs something around it. Beans need moisture and brightness. Chicken needs a base to feel like a dish. Pasta needs sauce to feel like dinner. Canned tomatoes provide all of that quietly, cheaply, and consistently. That makes them worth their weight many times over in any practical pantry. Number 3, canned beans. Canned beans deserve more genuine credit than they typically receive. They are usually mentioned as an afterthought in food lists, lumped casually into the category of cheap pantry staples, without much real explanation of what makes them specifically valuable. So let us be more precise about it. In recent years, meat prices have climbed significantly and continue to rise. Beef prices in particular have increased sharply. For a family that has built its weekly meals around ground beef, whether for chili, tacos, pasta sauce, or weekend dinners, that price increase is not just an abstract statistic on a news report. It shows up every single time someone stands in front of the meat section and quietly does the mental math on whether this week's dinner budget can still stretch the way it used to. Canned beans give you a practical, affordable answer to that specific pressure, not by eliminating meat from your meals entirely, but by making the meat you do use go meaningfully further without anyone at the table feeling shortchanged. A pot of chili with less ground beef but a full can of black beans or kidney beans is still a thick, filling, deeply satisfying pot of chili. A bowl of rice topped with well-seasoned pinto beans is no longer just starch sitting on a plate. It is a real meal with protein, fiber, and genuine staying power. A soup stretched with chickpeas does not feel thin or like you're rationing. It feels like you made something substantial and intentional. Beans do not pretend to be meat. They do not need to. Their job is to give meals weight, depth, and nutritional value at a price point that does not punish your grocery budget every single week. Now, here is the comparison that often gets skipped over in these conversations. Dry beans are also genuinely valuable. They are even cheaper per serving than canned. They can be stored for a very long time, and they have their own legitimate place in a well-rounded pantry. But dry beans come with real conditions attached. You need time to soak them, often overnight. You need a considerable amount of water. You need fuel and a working stove, sometimes for over an hour of active cooking. And you need the presence of mind to plan ahead by at least half a day. On a typical calm day, none of those conditions are a problem. You soak them the night before and cook them the next afternoon. In a difficult, high-stress situation, all of those conditions can quietly become real barriers between your family and dinner. Canned beans have none of those barriers. They are already fully cooked. Open the can, rinse if you have clean water available, and they are immediately ready to use in whatever you are making. Add them directly to whatever is on the stove. Warm them in 5 minutes. Or, if the situation calls for it, eat them cold straight from the can. No soaking, no hour-long simmering, no advanced planning required whatsoever. That accessibility is the real value of canned beans. Not the flavor, not the brand, not the variety, but the simple fact that they are ready the moment you need them, with no prerequisites. Beans also bring something to the table that often gets overlooked entirely: dietary fiber. During a period of disrupted eating, when meals are less balanced than usual and fresh vegetables are temporarily harder to access, fiber helps your body stay regulated and comfortable. It helps people feel fuller for longer on smaller portions of food. It supports digestion during a time when stress is already taxing the body in multiple ways. That is a quiet but genuinely meaningful contribution that most canned proteins simply cannot offer alongside their other benefits. Choose your bean variety based on what your family actually eats on a normal week. Black beans if your household regularly makes rice bowls, tacos, or chili. Pinto beans for their soft texture and remarkable flexibility across different cooking styles. Kidney beans for thick, hearty soups and stews. Chickpeas if your family leans toward curry, Mediterranean-style cooking, or simple mixed salads. Do not buy a variety your family has never cooked with just because it appeared on a recommended list. Buy what already fits naturally into your family's normal meal rotation. That way, beans never just sit unused on the shelf. They get cooked, enjoyed, replaced, and used again. Number 2, canned chili or stew. There is a kind of exhaustion that grocery lists and preparedness guides almost never account for. It is invisible in spreadsheets and impossible to quantify on a shelf inventory. But anyone who has managed a household through a genuinely difficult stretch of days knows exactly what it feels like. It is the exhaustion of the person who has to turn all those carefully stored ingredients into actual food, every single day, sometimes multiple times a day, in a situation that is already stressful and draining, with people in the house who are hungry and probably not at their most patient or understanding. That person, whoever does most of the cooking and meal planning in your household, needs support too. And canned chili or stew is one of the most practical, immediate ways to provide that support on the days when it is most needed. Here is the key distinction that separates this item from everything else on the list. Every other item we have covered is an ingredient that requires assembly. Canned chicken is an ingredient. Beans are an ingredient. Tomatoes are a flavor base. Even combined, they still require someone to make decisions, gather components, apply heat, and create something edible. But canned chili or stew is fundamentally different. Open the can and you are already looking at something that is essentially a finished meal. Heat it on the stove or a camp burner if you have the ability. Serve it over rice to stretch it further and feed more people. Eat it with bread, crackers, or potatoes on the side. Or in a situation where heating is genuinely not possible, Eat it directly as it is. It is already fully seasoned, already properly thickened, already a balanced combination of protein, vegetables, and a rich base sauce. The burden that removes from a difficult evening is genuinely hard to overstate until you have experienced that kind of day yourself. Think about a completely realistic hard day scenario. You have been managing a stressful situation since early morning. Everyone in the house is tired, hungry, and running low on patience. The pantry has all the right ingredients. You could technically assemble a meal from those ingredients, but doing that means deciding what to cook, mentally combining components, standing at the stove monitoring things, and then facing the cleanup afterward. Right now, the thought of doing all of that feels genuinely impossible. That is when canned chili or stew steps in and earns every single inch of shelf space it occupies. This is also worth examining from a real-world cost of living perspective. Many families have significantly cut back on takeout and fast food as costs have risen across the board. But the need for a quick, low-effort meal has not disappeared with those cuts. People are still working long days, still exhausted, still having evenings where cooking from scratch simply is not going to happen regardless of what is theoretically available. Canned chili and stew occupy a genuinely useful middle ground in that reality. Cheaper than most takeout options by a significant margin, longer lasting than any fresh food, requiring almost nothing from the cook, and eliminating the most mentally taxing part of a tired mealtime, which is not the cooking itself, but the decision-making that has to happen before a single pan touches the stove. Now, some important practical advice about buying this item specifically. Quality variation between brands is far more noticeable with chili and stew than with most other canned goods. Some cans are thick, hearty, well-seasoned, and genuinely deliver on what the label promises. Others are thin, watery, oddly flavored, and will sit untouched at the back of your cabinet for 2 years before eventually being thrown away. Do not buy a full case of an unfamiliar brand just because the price looks attractive on that particular shopping day. Buy 1 or 2 cans from several different options first. Heat them up on a normal weeknight when there is no pressure. See which one your family actually finishes without complaint and perhaps goes back to the pot for more. Then stock the one that passed that real-life test consistently. Also pay attention to sodium levels on the label. Many canned chili products are quite high in sodium, which matters for some households more than others. Pairing a saltier chili with plain rice, unsalted pasta, or plain bread naturally dilutes the sodium content per serving without requiring you to find a specialized low-sodium product or change your shopping habits dramatically. Number 1. Canned fruit. This is the item people most often raise an eyebrow at when they first see it appearing on a serious preparedness list. Canned fruit? When we are talking about genuinely hard times and practical survival? Surely there are more important priorities than peaches packed in juice sitting on a shelf. Here is what those people are missing. A pantry is not purely a logistics problem. It is a deeply human problem. And humans have real limits that go well beyond calorie counts, protein grams, and shelf-stable duration. By day 5 or 7 of eating exclusively from emergency stores, something happens that no spreadsheet or inventory list can fully capture. People start losing their actual willingness to eat, not because they are not hungry in a physical sense, but because everything has started to taste exactly the same. Everything is heavy and dense. Everything is salty. Everything requires chewing through yet another warm, savory, filling meal that feels identical to the one before it. An older person in the household may quietly begin skipping meals rather than eating something that has become genuinely unpleasant to them. A child who is already stressed and thrown out of their normal routine starts refusing food that was perfectly fine 3 days earlier. Someone who is recovering from illness or simply dealing with stress-induced nausea wants something soft and gentle and lightly sweet, and there is absolutely nothing like that anywhere in the entire pantry. This is precisely how a pantry fails in practice. Not because it ran out of food, but because the real people it was designed to support stopped wanting to eat what it contained. That failure is just as complete as running out of supplies, and it is far more common. Canned fruit solves this in a way that nothing else on this entire list can replicate. Peaches, pears, mandarin oranges, pineapple chunks, applesauce, mixed fruit cocktail. These bring something completely different to the table. They are soft and easy to eat. They are light rather than heavy. They are gently sweet in a way that contrasts sharply with everything else in the pantry. They carry their own natural liquid. They require zero cooking, zero preparation time, and almost no chewing effort for even the most reluctant eater. You open the can, and you immediately have something that tastes and feels completely unlike everything else your family has been eating. That contrast alone is more valuable than it initially sounds. Fresh fruit is obviously wonderful and nutritious, but it is also one of the first things to disappear when grocery trips get delayed or disrupted. It spoils within days, even in good conditions. It bruises easily in transit. It simply cannot wait. Canned fruit holds that lighter, gentler eating experience safely in reserve for exactly the moments when your family needs it most, and when fresh options are simply not available. There is also an important consideration for specific members of many households. Children genuinely do better with variety in their meals, and their appetite is often the first thing to suffer when meals become repetitive. Older adults sometimes struggle significantly with appetite and chewing comfort when every meal is consistently dense, tough, or heavily seasoned. Anyone managing nausea, recovering from illness, or simply dealing with the kind of emotional stress that removes appetite often finds that something light, cool, and gently sweet is the only thing they can actually bring themselves to eat. Canned fruit answers all of those needs at once, with no preparation required. It also breaks the psychological pattern of identical, interchangeable meals in a way that is surprisingly powerful. Even opening a small can of mandarin oranges alongside a bowl of chili and rice makes that entire meal feel different and more varied. The visual contrast on the plate, the completely different taste on the palate, the different texture under the fork. It signals to your brain that you are still eating real, varied food rather than cycling through the same rotation of identical meals indefinitely. For buying, the guidance is straightforward and uncomplicated. Choose fruit packed in juice rather than heavy syrup whenever the option is available. The syrup versions work perfectly fine in an emergency, but they carry significantly more sugar per serving, which adds up quickly across multiple meals and multiple days. Check cans carefully before purchase and again before opening, avoiding anything that appears swollen, heavily dented along the seam, or showing any rust. And as with every item on this list, buy specifically what your family will genuinely eat without resistance. If your children dislike pears but enthusiastically eat mandarin oranges, stock mandarin oranges. If applesauce is already something your household reaches for regularly on normal days, that is an easy and natural addition. The goal is never to fill shelves with theoretically correct preparedness items that look good on a list. The goal is to have food your real specific family will actually eat willingly when they need it most. Canned fruit does not make your pantry look more serious, tactical, or impressive, but it might genuinely be the reason your family keeps eating well and keeps their spirits manageable through the hardest stretch of days you face together. And in the end, that is precisely what a pantry is actually for, bringing it all together. Let us step back and look honestly at what these 6 items form when you put them together on a shelf. Canned chicken covers quick animal protein without any electricity, thawing, or raw meat handling required. Canned sardines bring dense fat and layered nutrition in a compact, affordable package that carb-heavy pantries desperately need. Canned tomatoes create flavor, moisture, and the feeling of real cooking that keeps people willing to eat. Canned beans add bulk, fiber, and plant protein that stretches every other ingredient meaningfully further. Canned chili or stew delivers a complete meal on the nights when nobody has anything left to give to the kitchen. And canned fruit maintains appetite, variety, and a sense of normalcy when everything else in the pantry starts feeling identical and exhausting. 6 items, 6 genuinely different roles, none of them duplicating what the others provide. This is not a list of the 6 most impressive survival foods or the 6 things a serious prepper would display proudly. It is a list of 6 foods that work together as a functional, practical system for real families living real lives under real pressure. And a functional system is the entire difference between a pantry that looks good on a shelf and a pantry that actually carries people through something genuinely difficult. Here is the final thought worth sitting with before you close this and go about your day. A pantry is not really tested on day one of a hard stretch. Day one is almost always manageable. On day one, people are resourceful and motivated. They are willing to be flexible, willing to eat whatever is available, willing to make do cheerfully. The real test comes on day 5, day 7, the day when everyone is genuinely worn out, when the situation has not resolved itself the way everyone hoped, when meals have started blurring together into an indistinguishable, repetitive sequence, and when the person responsible for feeding everyone is running on empty with nothing left to give. That is when your pantry either holds up under pressure or it quietly fails the people who depended on it. The 6 items on this list are chosen specifically for that test, not the easy early days, but the harder ones that follow. They carry protein when the freezer is not an option. They bring nutrition when lean starches are not enough. They create flavor when everything has gone dry and dull. They add substance when meals need to stretch further. They show up as complete ready meals when energy for cooking has run out. And they keep people willing and able to eat even when everything around them feels difficult and heavy. Tonight, take a few minutes to actually open your pantry and look thoughtfully at what is in there. Not to count cans or feel satisfied with the number, but to think carefully about roles. Do you have quick protein that requires no electricity and no thawing? Do you have a compact source of fat and dense nutrition? Do you have something that reliably creates flavor? Do you have something that stretches your meals further on tight days? Do you have a complete ready-to-eat meal waiting for the nights nobody can face cooking? Do you have something lighter and gentler for when heavy meals become genuinely too much for everyone? If any of those roles are missing from your current shelf, now you know exactly what to prioritize adding first. Not randomly, not based on what sounds impressive, but based on what your specific family actually needs.